What's up, everybody? How's it going? Today is November 4th, 2020, and today marks the 1-year anniversary of the day that I submitted my 1 week's resignation notice to Facebook. That's right, on November 4th, 2019, exactly a year ago, I quit my software engineering job at Facebook in order to pursue my company, AlgoExpert, full-time. By the way, if you're preparing for your coding interviews or your systems design interviews, if you're trying to get into a company like Facebook as a software engineer, then do check out my company, AlgoExpert. Go to algoexpert.io and use the promo code CLEM, C-L-E-M, for a discount on the platform. But so it's been exactly 1 year, and today I want to answer a question that a lot of people have asked me recently, a question that I've been asking myself, and a question that I was asking myself preemptively back in November 2019, and that question is, do I regret, or will I regret back then, do I regret quitting my job at Facebook to pursue AlgoExpert full-time? Now, those of you who've been watching my videos for a while know this, but some of you might be new here, you might not know this. I had an amazing job at Facebook. Working at Facebook was awesome. Facebook's a great company. Awesome perks and benefits, great team, great office, great work environment. I was getting paid very, very handsomely. As you know, I made a video sharing my entire salary or compensation package at Facebook. I stood to make $350,000 in just my first year. And actually, if you look at the Facebook stock price today, which has gone up a ton in 2020, I would have actually made almost $400,000 this year. That is crazy. And I had only been at Facebook for 2 months when I resigned, so I didn't get to see much of that money. But so all that to say, I had an amazing job, and it's very fair to ask, do I regret now, 1 year later, having made the decision that I made? Now, in order to answer this question, I do have to give you a tiny bit of context around how I made the decision to quit Facebook a year ago. And really, there were three concerns, so to speak, that I had, or that we had, we being my entire team on AlgoExpert, because we all quit our full-time jobs at the same time. And so we had really three concerns back in November 2019. The first one was a concern around whether or not we would have enough work to do on AlgoExpert if we quit our full-time jobs and went full-time on AlgoExpert. Because back then, back in November 2019, we had roughly a 6-month roadmap. We knew that there were a few things that we definitely had to add to the platform to make it really good. For example, we knew that we had to come out with a systems design offering. That was one of the big things that we wanted to accomplish. And there were a few others. But beyond 6 months, things were a little bit fuzzy. And we were worried that maybe if we went full-time on AlgoExpert, we would find ourselves just, rolling our thumbs or whatever the expression is without any more work to do. And that would have been silly because then maybe we could have continued doing AlgoExpert as a side business, all the while keeping our full-time jobs, and that would have been better. So that was one of the concerns. The second concern that I had was a financial concern. And really, what that one came down to was, did I think that I would be able to make more money, or at least as much money, or at least almost as much money, an amount that I would be happy with if I quit my full-time job at Facebook and pursued AlgoExpert? And here I have to say that this financial concern is pretty tricky for people who work as software engineers at FANG, especially at FANG, but also other tech companies, especially in high cost of living areas like New York City, which is where I was, because we have such inflated salaries. We have such high salaries. I mean, $400,000 or $350,000 if you don't count the stock appreciation. That is an insane amount of money. And so it becomes all the more difficult to match that. Like, the financial bar that you have to pass or that you have to reach is that much harder to reach. So that was definitely a concern, and I really didn't know what was going to happen. To give you an idea, back then, I think we had hit our record month in October or even September. I think both September and October 2019 had been record months where we had broken $50,000 of revenue in 1 month, even $60,000. So it was a lot of money, but by no means something like extraordinary for a business. It was a lot of potential, a lot of foreshadowing, if that makes sense, but it wasn't, clear cut, you're going to be making more money or at least as much money as you're making at Facebook. And of course, those figures were for the company as a whole, not for me personally. Now, the third and final concern that I had was one that really ties back to the entire topic of this video, and it had to do with regret. And regret in both ways. On the one hand, would I find myself a year from last year, so today, regretting having made this decision to quit Facebook to pursue AlgoExpert? But then on the other hand, would I find myself, if I didn't quit Facebook, regretting not having tried to at least pursue AlgoExpert for 1 year or for a little bit of time to see what would happen? So now, a year later, let's talk about these three concerns. We'll start with the first one about the product or the business, whether or not we would have enough work. And I can very, very happily and confidently say that that was a misfounded or misguided, misinformed, I don't know what the word is, concern. It turns out that we've had an insane amount of work to do. We continue to have an insane amount of work to do to the point where we can't do all this work. Like, we're constantly trying to do more and not being able to do more, if that makes sense. And hopefully, for those of you who are customers of AlgoExpert, you've been able to see that over the past year, we've added so many things to the platform, improvements, features, contents, all sorts of things, like the mock interviews that we just came out with recently and all the other things that we've come out with this past year. We've still got a lot in the works right now. Huge announcement coming very soon, by the way, about that. But so yes, that is a concern that has completely been kind of eradicated in my mind. It turns out that it was the right decision. We would not have been able to accomplish everything that we've accomplished from a product and business point of view in the past year if we hadn't gone full-time on AlgoExpert, and so I'm very happy on that front. Now, as far as financials are concerned, I'm also really happy to say that we really performed, or the business as a whole performed, beyond our wildest imagination. Like, we literally could not have predicted how well AlgoExpert would have done this past year. Financially speaking, the business has really thrived. I've made personally far more than I could have ever expected and far more than what I was making at at Facebook, but also at Google. And the business itself is making far more than it was a year ago. I might do a video where I kind of share figures a little bit more transparently in the near future, but that's all I'll say here. But really, that concern has been completely eradicated. And now, as you can imagine, as a whole, from a regret point of view, and that third concern that I had, I certainly do not regret the decision to have quit Facebook now a year later. But I will say that even if things hadn't gone as well as they have this past year, if we hadn't performed as well as we have, I don't think that I would have any regrets, because at the end of the day, the regrets that I would have had I stayed at Facebook, the regrets of not knowing what could have happened if I had tried to pursue AlgoExpert full-time, those regrets would have far outweighed or overshadowed the regrets that I could have now if things hadn't gone well. Because at least I would have been able to tell myself, you tried, you had data that suggested that it might be a good idea to pursue AlgoExpert full-time, and it didn't work out, whatever, but at least you tried. This kind of ties back to something that Jeff Bezos from Amazon always talks about, the regret minimization framework. And he just says, do things or make decisions, make choices by thinking of yourself on your deathbed and asking yourself, will you regret not having made certain choices on your deathbed? And here, that would have been a big regret had I not tried to pursue AlgoExpert full-time. And one last thing that I want to add before I wrap up this video is that putting aside the money, putting aside the actual, amount of work that we've done or that we've had to do for the business, the amount of impact that I've been able to have and that our entire team has been able to have on you, our customers, assuming that you're one of our customers or that you might be a future customer, has really been awesome. It's been awesome to see tens of thousands of people use our platform, really enjoy it, give us positive feedback, tell us that it helped them land their dream software engineering job or internship. And even though I could have had a lot of impact at a company like Facebook or Google, I do think that here, pursuing Algo Expert full-time this past year has really maximized the amount of impact on other people, positive impact, that I personally could have had in this past year. I would not have been able to have even an ounce of the same amount of impact had I stayed at Facebook. That's not to say that I don't miss Facebook. I certainly do. I loved the people there. I loved the office, although I suppose that right now everybody's working from home. But I still loved everything about it. And, this is where life has taken me. We'll see where things go from here. I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to smash the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, follow me on LinkedIn and Twitter if you enjoy short-form written content, follow me on Instagram if you like pictures, and otherwise I will see you in the next video.